Money, Your Life featuring Professor Ko from Singapore. Brought to you here every week by themetropolis.com and Lifestyle TV USA. Hi everyone, thank you for tuning in again to Masterclass Made Easy, Your Money, Your Life with Professor Siew Ko. And you know, this show is going to be played in America in all paid American TV networks, particularly on Lifestyle TV USA by Dr. Moby. And by Dr. Moby again has made another milestone and voted as number 53 professional TV by Hollywood Digest that just came out today. So he's in the ranks of Joe Rogan in the world right now. Thank you everyone for supporting him and myself and the shows. And I've got Professor Ko. Thank you, Professor. I would like to make you the host for today, and without further ado, let's dive into your session. Professor Ko, you are actually the host of the show right now.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, everyone who has tuned in again. All right, I'm going to just dive into what I have prepared for today. All right?
Yes, and while Professor Ko is preparing her slides, it is going to be on qualitative analysis on for a retailer when a retailer, he or she or myself, with $10,000, we try to invest in a company, in the shares, but you know, it goes beyond the numbers. And today, Professor Ko is going to talk to us and explain some of these very important internal and external factors that she will explain. Thank you, Professor Ko. Could you take it away?
Sure. Thank you, Vicky. So, if you have been following us in the past few sessions, you will remember my favorite three-legged stool called the financial statements. And here they are. Just a very quick recap. They are the balance sheet, the income statement, and the cash flow statement that shows liquidity. If we can take a lead from the listed companies, all right, even SMEs can learn from them. How do we learn? We look at how these listed companies have the CEO, the chairman making a statement, and usually this statement is forward-looking because we are living in a world that is changing so fast. So we have to predict what is to come in the next month, next year, and next decade. And the important part is, besides looking at the three-legged stool, we must take note of an auditor's report. I'm going to show you what it means, all right? So these are the three legs, and maybe there is a fourth leg. It's called the notes to accounts that actually elaborates. And if I can carry on, I'll show you. One of the important things, whether we are looking at listed companies, non-listed companies, or even small, medium enterprise, if the enterprise can have the accounts audited, it will add a lot of credibility. The credibility means that when a counterparty like a supplier or even customers has dealing with an SME, they will view this company with more confidence. And of course, a good report is actually an unqualified report. Take a look at this.
Yes. This is the audited report, yes.
That's right, because it went through a third party, and we call them the policeman, the policewoman, who will check on the accounts and give a statement of truth. If they feel this account has been prepared in a very clean way, reflecting the true financial status, they will give it a thumbs up. The equivalent of today's thumbs up is an unqualified opinion. And that's a good one because there's no qualifications like subject to, except for, etc., etc. Now, only when the company's accounts are audited, then it gives the reader. The reader has a lot of confidence that I can trust this account because it has been certified by a third party to have at least gone through some proper way of internal control and presenting the true and fair view of a company.
Yes, it's like a third-party verification of
That's
all
correct.
the numbers.
Yes. So once I get through this part called audited accounts, unless I saw an account that is not good, so a qualified opinion by a third party like Price Waterhouse, Ernst and Young, these are the two of the few more international accounting firms. If it's a qualified one, it actually means that you may not want to depend 100% on what you see in the financial statement. But you know, Vicky, today I'm going to bring everybody beyond just the financial statements, which are quantitative in nature. Today I'm going to balance it with the qualitative part, like who is the one who drives the return on equity. So ROE here is the return on equity, which we have gone through in the past few sessions, and actually is none other than the management. Now, there are a few qualities we want to look at when the key man, and in an SME, we are actually looking at the key man, or maybe, a few key men. They are the guys who actually builds confidence and chart the direction of the company.
Yes.
They look at the numbers, the future, the marketing, the sales, and the ongoing production. In fact, they should even look at the R&D, especially in times like this. And if they are people who are quite veteran, many years in the business, but with changes that is happening around us, like now, they have to look at successions as well. Who is going to take over their business? Is it the children, especially if this is a small, medium enterprise? What if it's not very corporatized yet? Who's going to take over? What kind of financial system, operation system do they have? So these are the really important non-quantitative factors we are looking at.
Yeah, and Professor Koh, I think you've struck the nail on the head, because when Steve Jobs passed, he actually brought on Tim Cook, and Tim Cook is quite reputed within the organization already. So that is one of the points, like what you say, the key man and the key management. And American companies are driven by that. That's like, for example, Elon Musk. They're almost like the rock star of the company as the face of the company, Professor Koh.
Yes, he's like the mover and the shaker.
Yeah.
In the financial markets.
Yeah.
So management quality is one of the qualitative factors, but we are going to zoom out. Beyond the micro qualitative factors, we have this thing called the macro environment, the macroeconomic factors. And it's really so important. If I can represent it this way, I would have divided into something binary, macro, overall picture,
yes,
and the micro inside the company. And one of the ways for non-finance people to appreciate, why do I look at risk? Because I have looked at a lot of factors called returns. We did topics like return on equity, return on total assets. Now we're going to look at the other side. What is the risk associated, especially when we are always able to achieve high return? It probably attracts a lot of risk. And here comes the triangle formula. Now, this formula is my favorite, because picture always paints.
It's my favorite too.
Yeah.
Everything just collapsed nicely in a pyramid. Take it away, Professor Koh.
Yeah, and it's very good for helping somebody to appreciate that it is always top down. Looking at risk. If today, this country I'm looking at is spelled as China, China, a lot of things come to mind because of what has happened in the past 1 month that actually affects the environment of business.
Yeah.
which in turn affects industry. It could be the education industry. It could be the gaming industry, the technology industry, etc., etc., which then in turn affects the company like Apple, Alibaba, and etc. So, this thing really just cascade down all
Yes.
the way. And like you say, it helps everybody to appreciate that we spend a lot of time looking at the three legs, none other than the income statement, the balance sheet, and also the cash flow. But all these take place under this big umbrella, depending on which business environment you're in. And just now, I already put in this important part called the management. The key man or the board of directors, with all the C-suite people, drives the direction of the company. And there are many things in the market that is beyond the control. Look at how, if today an American were to consider going to Brazil, they will realize that Brazil is a very big country. There are many opportunities even for small, medium enterprise. So they have to do their homework. Look at what is the cost of doing business there, the resources. And once this is understood, they can zoom in and understand that this prevails in every country. It's called the VUCA.
Yes.
This is,
Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And it's even more intense now. We're in the middle of a pandemic and we do not know when we're going to come up. And it seems that we are actually going on a roller coaster.
yes, one even wonders, if we are recovering, is it a K-shaped recovery, V-shaped, or is that going to be a prolonged period before we really recover? And it changes, one day is positive, the next day is negative. Yeah, it's really ambiguous.
It seems that it's prolonged and it's elongated recovery.
And nobody knows what is going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, and next year. You see, this is the exciting, if you look at it in the positive way, because the threats also presents the positive side for business opportunities.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to point out that this is a very, very important slide. And if you look at all these sessions, right, I will always say that in every session, there's 20 minutes to half an hour with Professor Ko. I think there are always that few key slides that Professor Ko brings to us that we can actually take back and learn something. And this is one of the slides that encapsulates all these forces that she's going to say. Beautifully done. And because forces are actually quite unstructured, volatile, but she has actually captured it within one slide. Beautiful. And I think for a learner, for someone to encapsulate everything, I think they can easily remember this slide, Professor Ko.
And Vicky, you're right. To make it even easier for everybody to appreciate this is what I'm going to show everyone.
Yeah.
Due to the volatility, the uncertainty, the changes that are taking place, we must acknowledge that the only constant thing is change. And how do we as SMEs, as MNCs, pivot, reset, rebuild, all right, amidst the change, which is inevitable, is beyond the business owner's control.
Yes.
So you either change or you perish.
Yes. Change or you perish. That's true.
Yeah. And the way to remember this, because the rate of change is so fast. All the things that has happened over the past 20 years, 30 years can just change within this few years.
Yes, overnight.
That is to come. Yes, overnight. It's just so unpredictable. So VUCA really describes it very well.
Yes.
But because we are in a business world, I want everybody to appreciate and be aware of the PEST. So this is another of my favorite slides.
PEST, the environmental assessment.
I mean, one would have thought about climate change when you see the word environmental, which is
Yes.
actually another very important factor. But today, I'm just going to give everybody an easy way to appreciate political, economic, social, and technological change. These are the risks that all businessmen face. Political environment means that when there's a change in legislation, like what we saw happen in China,
Yep.
has a cascading effect onto the companies.
Yes.
And if I can bring you to what happens to China, I'm going to share with everybody this particular slide here. Sorry, let me do that one more time.
Yes, and while Professor Ko is trying to pull up a slide on a certain events happening, and one of the things to update everyone, China is actually clamping down on all personal private tuition online. And that affects so many companies, including Temasek, one of the sovereign funds that actually invested heavily in some of the schools, private schools. So, ladies and gentlemen, so this is one of the example Professor Ko is talking about, regulation, political regulation that actually filters down to private commercial businesses. Professor Ko, are you ready with the slide?
Yeah, I may need a little bit more time.
Okay, so this is what's happening in China. Not only that, China also made changes to companies. I think one of these companies was working space companies about co-sharing of workspace, and I think that also affected one of the Singapore sovereign fund investments, Temasek Holding in China. And that is particularly interesting because in 2019, I think Professor Ko knows the company WeWork. And I followed WeWork since the beginning of 2019 and how it actually builds its company from the founders from Israel. We're talking about these very intelligent founders who actually very quickly multiplied and expanded its businesses and actually created a lot of subsidiaries for their own benefit beyond the benefit of the company. And of course, SoftBank invested a lot, billions and billions of dollars in WeWork, and and it tries to unravel and try to buy out the owner of WeWork. So, but unfortunately, Singapore Temasek Holding, the sovereign fund of Singapore, actually bought over WeWork of China just before the pandemic hit. And when pandemic hit 2020, can you imagine all these co-working spaces are just totally empty? So I'm not quite sure what's happening there. Notice is coming out from WeWork China that Singapore Temasek Holding has invested in it. And of course, what we read is actually just from the open space, in the open domain from the media. We don't have any insider information. But I would think that, with the COVID-19 situation in China, co-working space, it's going to be one of the businesses that is going to be finding itself hard to pivot itself or reinvent itself, as risk is still, very prevalent. COVID-19 in Asia, particularly in China, they're going for the COVID zero strategy. So yes, Professor Ko, now we're with Forbes now. Apple
Yes.
floats above China technology crackdown for now. Tell us about this article from Forbes.
Yes, this is to demonstrate what I was illustrating about the impact of political change, legal change, regulatory change on businesses.
Yes.
So with the crackdown, as you can see, while I roll it further down, due to the Chinese government under the President Xi Jinping,
Yes.
his crackdown on technology companies because of his announcement, yes, of these regulatory measures actually means that the country's super fast growing economy suddenly have this knee-jerk effect. And
Yes.
everybody knew what happened when this announcement was made some weeks ago.
Yes.
The only company you will see in a while, which I'm going to just click on here, is perhaps the only company that wasn't so badly affected is Apple. All right. But by and large, not just technology, education, all right, as well as those sectors that is involved in data privacy, really got hugely impacted.
Yes.
So this is really way beyond the fundamentals of what you used to see in the financial statements.
Yes.
One change in regulation sends the ripple throughout these sectors that are affected.
Yeah. And because of these macro factors is not within the control of the commercial sector, it can be huge because if you did not factor in or hedge against it, it could have a devastating, tremendous effect on the company.
Yes. So you can see, I further show you on the internet. Regulators in China have in the last few months ramped up scrutiny on the country's tech giants, Alibaba and Tencent.
Yes.
Perhaps, all right, only Apple managed to hold it quite well. It's really a major overhang. All right. But because of the good fundamentals, Apple suffered the least among so many tech stocks. So here I am highlighting.
One question before
Sure,
we wrap up
Vicky.
your 20-minute session, Professor Ko, and we come back for the second session. What do you foresee now for the imminent future in China for commercial companies? And we're talking about, this is almost just like a tip of the iceberg of the communist government is trying to crack down on huge companies that are actually deemed too big to fail, but yet it seems that they are trying to make them, really control them from the communist central government. What do you see, Professor Gu, from now?
I think from what I see here is a very stark contrast between the East
Yes.
and the West. Now, when the companies like Amazon.com, Google, Apple, all right, when the commercial sector grew in strength and very steep growth, even the government gives some respect to the strength of this private sector. So it's a free market.
Yes.
But by contrast, in China, when Alibaba and Tencent grew too big, and because, like you say, this is a communist country, the government really has a way of controlling it. But I think in the long run, with the speed of growth that China has been showing in the past 10, 20 years, I think they are here to stay. Give them some more years, they probably will be able to overtake in terms of economic power.
Yeah, it is already now the second largest economy in the world, overtaken Germany. It overtook Japan, then it overtook Germany, and now overtaking almost America already, except for the trade war implemented by Donald Trump. But a lot of things that we can talk about that. But I would like to thank you. Would you like to wrap up the first session today? And we come back in for a second session in a 20-minute rundown on all these environmental factors for us. Would you like to wrap this up in the next 2 minutes?
Sure. So I would like to show, Vicky, what we can remember by memorizing P, E,
S, T.
S, T. And if one pest is not enough, I can add an S behind that, P-E-S-T. So there will be many pests. Well, to make you remember and recall what is the S, if you can recall what happened in 2003, we had SARS.
Yes.
And then there was MERS, there was Zika,
Yes.
and now, unfortunately, is COVID-19 pandemic. So tomorrow, when we do the second part of this series, I will go in depth on what economic, social, technology, as well as COVID, because they really do have a very long-lasting effect. I will deep dive into that. So over to you, Vicky.
Thank you so much, Professor Ko. And you've talked the PST, the first P, which is political, and we have really gone so much into it. And tomorrow, I wonder if we're able to wrap it up in another 20-minute session with you and the viewers. But you have really gripped in, because what you say is actually what we are really living right now. These are relevant now, and it's relevant in every country. We're not talking about things that is just academic from the textbook, like what you talk about, PST, political. Not only political in China and also in Singapore, when there's a political policy that comes out, for example, for the foreign talent, which is debated this couple of days in Parliament, it does affect commercial businesses in terms of getting resources, either local, foreign, and their expansion plans, and also their longer term or mid-term development plans in Singapore. So you're talking about a lot of impact, even only during debates, like words that is being spoken out in the Parliament. But you're really talking about beyond these words, the management, the key men of the companies that you're talking about, they will be thinking, hey, should we invest in the next 500 million in Singapore? Are they able to sustain the expansion for the company? So these are big topics you're talking about, Professor Ko. Wonderful, very intriguing, very real, and such gripping topics. To me, these are gripping topics. These are real, and these are something that you can actually resonate when you read papers and you read articles like what you just showed from China papers and also from Forbes. Thank you, Professor Ko. Would you like to say goodbye for the next 15 seconds or so?
Thank you, Vicky, and thank you for everyone out there who is always back to support both of us here. Thank you for your time. See you soon.
Your Money, Your Life, featuring Professor Ko from Singapore. Brought to you here every week by themetropolis.com and Lifestyle TV USA.